All right. Good morning to everyone. It is morning, at least on the East Coast. This is Frank McNally from Public Spend Forum and Gov Shop, and we're presenting this webinar today as part of our 10-week GovCon Boot Camp, and it's called Finding Your Fit, Targeting Agencies and Opportunities in the Government Contracting Environment. Now, for all of you boot campers, we are in week 4, I believe now, or actually 4 is coming up. So we are through 3 weeks and we've done some great stuff so far. We have registered for the system for award management. So our contracting companies are eligible to win government contracts. We've determined whether or not we're eligible for any socioeconomic set-asides. Some of those we can self-register for. Others, we have to go through a little bit more formality, but nevertheless, those are really terrific opportunities for you if you qualify, and I recommend you definitely explore that. We've got a capability statement, both hopefully on govshop.com. You've claimed your free company profile and created that digital capability statement, but you also have one in hard copy that you can modify and send to all those Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business officers, tailored to their specific needs and the problems that their agencies face. But we haven't really talked that much about how to discover the problems and challenges that those agencies are facing. And that's going to be a big focus of our webinar today. So we've got some really special guests, and I want to introduce them. These are all business development experts, and apologies for the mantle here. I know that's very out of favor in these days. These folks have worked with us in the past, and there's a lot of great business developers out there. And I'm happy to have Brian and Jonathan and Lido and Raj with us. And I want to do a little quick round of introductions. Let's start with, I'll start with myself. I'm Frank McNally, Director of Learning and Content Development here at Public Spend Forum. I've been a contracting officer in the federal government and a business development sort of management consultant on the private side. So I've had let's say the pleasure of writing solicitations and then also having the responsibility of responding to those solicitations for a contracting company. Gents, let's just go in alphabetical order. And I know Brian might be a few minutes late, but Brian, if you're on, go ahead and introduce yourself. If not, we'll go over to Jonathan.
Okay, thanks, Frank. My name is Jonathan Selter. I'm a managing director at Amanad Consulting. Amanad is a small business consulting firm. So my role includes a lot of business development and capture activities within the consulting space. I've been doing it for about 13 years. Part of that work also includes advising the government on their contracting. So I've seen a lot from the government side and what the government is looking for when evaluating and thinking about contracts. And happy to be with everyone today.
Fantastic. Lido, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Frank. Yeah, my name's Lido Ramadan. I'm the president and founder of Amanad Consulting. I'm pretty similar consulting and offering background to Jonathan, so I won't delve into that. But I've spent over the last 20 years in the government contracting space. I've founded multiple small businesses that have grown through some of the challenges that I know you've been discussing through the boot camp, and have a lot of lessons learned and look forward to sharing them with you today. So thanks, Frank, and happy to be on.
Excellent. Raj, last but certainly not least.
Thank you, Frank. Very similar backgrounds to Jonathan and Lido, and we've actually worked together quite a bit over the years. I'm a partner at KP Partners. We're a new management consulting firm that recently got into the SBA 8A program, and I'm excited and that everyone's been able to join, and happy to kind of share some of the stories and some of the tools that we've used over the years with everybody.
Fantastic. Thank you for the introductions there, and we'll get to Brian shortly. All right, real quick about Public Spend Forum. Most of you understand what we do here. We're a market intelligence platform for public sector buyers and suppliers, really trying to provide best practice frameworks and how-to information to folks like yourself out there trying to develop business in the public sector. We also work with the government side as well. So we help them conduct better market research, encourage them to explore small and emerging businesses that have new offerings to bring to the public sector market. And that's what we do. We do it through Gov Shop. Gov Shop is the supplier platform that we have built that hopefully you all have claimed your free company profile on. Really nice tool. You can have a Gov Shop profile be primarily your website. If you're small or if you're a sole proprietor out there and you don't want to have the website cost associated with a standalone website, you can use your Gov Shop supplier profile. It really has all the information that government contracting professionals are looking for when they conduct market research, and it's all in one place. We've got over 2 million suppliers in Gov Shop now, and the growth is just amazing. So please, if you haven't already, claim your Gov Shop profile so you can show up on the radar of those government contracting officers conducting market research. If you're having any trouble with that, reach out to me or anyone on our customer care team, and we can help you get started. All right, so our overview and objectives for today. This is what you're going to learn and how you'll learn it. So we all know there's a sizable market opportunity in government, and that's state, local, federal. I think there's trillions of dollars. I know Raj Sharma, our founder at Public Spend Forum, has calculated the global public procurement marketplace at $8 trillion or more. Federal government alone spends $500 billion a year discretionary funding that goes to contracts. State and local, vast spending as well. So the opportunity is there, but how do you get in? Right? Everybody, fair opportunity. Everybody has a chance to bid on government contracts, but not everybody wins. And the reason is because a lot of companies don't do their homework. So after this session, you're going to appreciate why it's important to have a targeted market and or agencies that you're going to pursue in government contracting business development. We'll talk about some of the tools and techniques you can use to do this targeting, and it's going to be a lot of demos today. So a lot of showing you the systems that we all use to do these things. We'll help you understand that there's sort of different personalities and players in government procurement and kind of how you should approach them, because developing relationships is critical. It's not going to win you necessarily a contract, but it's going to introduce you to a lot of opportunities and give you opportunities to embed what you do into the requirements that governments ultimately offer and solicit. And then finally, we'll put all these lessons together into a nice business development approach and get you on your way. All right, lesson 1, why do you have to do your homework? Our key question: do you really understand what government agencies buy, the products and services that you sell, and more importantly, why you buy them? If you listened to our recent podcast episode with Jenny Clark, the Oprah of government contracting, you know that it really is about doing the homework. You can't just go straight into the opportunities databases and start writing proposals. As good as those proposals may be, it's really not going to get you anywhere. It's all about the government targeting. Now, why? Because frankly, the government buys a lot of stuff. So this is just one screenshot from one day in beta.sam.gov, which is the federal government's major opportunities platform. But look, 90,000 opportunities. That number can go up higher than 90,000. I've seen it over 100,000 for sure. These are the opportunities that are active in the federal government space. You simply do not have time to review and respond to all of these. And frankly, that would be a recipe for disaster. So we want to make sure you kind of know which agencies to look at so that you can start a plan for targeting and relationship building and ultimately being successful in government contracting. Why is a government officer or a government contracting office or a program manager going to buy what you buy? If you don't understand, then they're not going to understand. So what's the product market fit? You really have to understand what you offer and how it's going to either solve a problem, accomplish a need, or really kind of tickle the fancy of the person that's buying it, right? The program manager. What's your unique value proposition? What is it that you do really well? What is it that you do differently from your competition? And what is it about what you offer is what the customer needs? It can be, if it's accounting services, if it's basic staffing, if it's products, you have to figure out what is unique about you. And it can also be a socioeconomic designation. That can be an unfair competitive advantage that you have that others don't. If you're the only 8A company in a particular marketplace, or if you're one of few 8A companies in a particular NAICS code or product service code, that's an unfair competitive advantage. You must trade on that. So we want you to understand that. Start thinking about that. And then as you home in on your product market fit, what agencies actually buy or have the problems that your products or services solve? Not every agency out there buys medical supplies. Not every agency out there will buy, facilities management. Some of them lease everything from GSA. So you need to understand where your agencies are. And that's where we want to get into the meat of this. Lesson 2, tools and techniques for conducting that initial agency market research. All right, I want to hop over here really quick to show you Gov Shop, because if you don't know where your commodity codes, where they're the most important, you need to have this information. This is really important information to have. So let me pull up our screenshot here. This is Gov Shop. You should be relatively familiar with this by now. We can look at our commodity codes page. So let's just say we offer prosthetics. If I offer prosthetics, I want to understand what commodity codes map to that, because if it's NIGP codes, that's state and local. When they put out their opportunities, they're going to codify it with their NIGP code. So here's dental prosthetics. Here's other prosthetic manufacturing services. I want to have these in my capability statement or in my profile. So when state and local buyers see this, they'll know, okay, that company offers what I ultimately want to buy. NAICS codes are North American Industry Classification Systems that determine whether or not your business will qualify as small or other than small in a particular NAICS category. So we don't see, actually we do see some NAICS codes here: surgical, appliance, and suppliers, supplies manufacturing, other medical, dental equipment, right? So obviously prosthetics is going to fit into one of those broader codes. Now what we don't see is the product service code. Product service codes are used at a higher level, like the kind of like at the government, federal government level, and it's important that you have the right ones in your profile, because government contracting officers will search by product service codes. So instead of prosthetics, maybe we need to look at medical devices, right? Because that's a broader category for prosthetics, and we can see here plenty of PSC codes mapped. Now, you're not limited to 1 or 2 PSC codes. You can select any that you want that apply to your business. So there's a ton. You'll want to spend some time researching product service codes. This one in particular, since I've already prepped for this webinar, I know is probably the right one. That's PSC code 6515. Okay, so that should be in your profile if you're a prosthetics manufacturer, if you sell prosthetics. Do that exercise for whatever it is you offer. Start with the keyword, drill down, and find your NIGP code, your product service code, and your NAICS code, okay? Write them down, put them in that capability statement. And then you're gonna wanna look for opportunities that match your code. So back over to Gov Shop. So we're gonna go from the commodity codes page over to our opportunities page. Now I can search a couple of different ways. I can search by keyword. So if I'm looking for prosthetics, again, I'll pop that keyword in there. I see 7 results for prosthetics. And what I'm going to learn just by doing this scan is the dominant buyer in this marketplace. 6 out of 7 are from Department of Veterans Affairs. Now there is one NASA opportunity, so it's not completely dominated by Department of Veterans Affairs or VA, but it relatively is. Now, if it's VA, there's a few things we know about VA. Number one is they primarily buy from SDVOSBs, service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. So if you're not a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, you may either think about attempting to become one through partnerships or hiring or joint ventures, or you might want to think, is this a market that I can actually pursue at the federal level? It may or may not be. But definitely look at the opportunities. This one at NASA, for instance, a portable, wearable, powered up upper body extremity robotic device. That sounds pretty cool. That might be something that's, worth pursuing. So that's some general tips on how to kind of understand who's buying and what. But let's get a little bit more specific, because we're going to use those codes to identify spending trends. And it's time for me to stop talking, frankly, because we've got a lot of great expertise on this panel today. And I'm going to kick it over to Jonathan. I need to stop sharing my screen so Jonathan can share his. And show us a little bit about how to look for spending trends on USA spending. Okay, Jonathan, thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. So this is usaspending.gov, which is a database of all of the contracting that the government has done. And there's a bunch of different ways to search through it. There's a tool called the Spending Explorer, which is more of a visual-based search tool. It's a little bit limiting, so I would really suggest you do the award search type view of usaspending.gov. So if we go to award search and go to advanced search, it takes us to a page here where we can build a search to look at what the government has spent over a long period of time. So this goes back all the way to fiscal year 2008. But let's continue with Frank's example. Put in a keyword here, put in prosthetics, click on the little search button. So that adds the filter. And then if I click submit search, it will pop out all of the government contracts that have been let that had prosthetics somewhere in the description of the award search. So this is a lot. It's gone back all the way to FY 2008. Some of that data likely is a little bit stale. So I'm gonna click through here to FY 21 and FY 2020 and resubmit my search just to get a little bit more recent information. And that has dropped down to about 2,500 contracts. And so there's a lot that that I could do with this. I can download this information and evaluate it, or I can just look a little bit in the screen here. So if you scroll over, you can see a couple of additional pieces of information. So there's a description of the requirement. Some are better than others. These are just free entry text fields that can be varyingly useful. But I can also see the agency that made the award, and then also, in most cases, a sub-agency. So the Department of Defense is quite large, but now I know that this is specifically within the Defense Health Agency. So maybe that's the area within the Department of Defense that I want to target. You can see the type of contract award, and then it just scrolled me back towards the beginning, where we can also see the award amount and the contract start date and the contract end date.
Jonathan, if I may, that award type where you saw delivery order, pretty important field, because as we'll see in future weeks of our boot camp, a delivery order is likely issued against a larger vehicle. And so you may not be able to even submit for a delivery order opportunity unless you had the contract at that higher level. Is that correct?
So yeah, the delivery order is more of like a one-time purchase of something versus a purchase order where it may be written off an existing contract. But absolutely, the contract awarded type is important to figure out, whether it's off of a contract vehicle that we need to get on, or if it's, something we could just bid on directly.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Absolutely. So just continuing on with this example, and I'm going to scroll this back over here. There's a bunch more fields that you could actually add in to refine the search. So let's say, we aren't necessarily trusting that the keyword search is working all that well. We'll take off the prosthetics keyword. And I'm going to add in, like Frank did before, the product or service code that relates to our category. So 6515, medical and surgical instruments, equipment, and supplies. And that will broaden my search to not just be where it found prosthetics, but everything within that category. And you can see the number of contracts has now jumped up to over 500,000. So that may be a little bit too broad. Maybe I want to restrict it to a specific agency. So in general, I'm just interested in working with the Department of Defense. So I will add that filter and resubmit my search. And now I'm seeing everything in 6515 within the Department of Defense. So there's lots of different ways you can search. I won't go through every single field, but you can kind of see on the left-hand side here the level of detail that you can get into. One additional field, just to show because it's important, I think, is type of set-aside. This is when we're talking about those socioeconomic designations that Frank mentioned. There are a lot of different buttons we can click here, but let's just go to a total small business set-aside. So that is the entire requirement is only for small businesses. I will submit my search, and that has dropped down quite a lot to 469. Now, that again doesn't mean that it was not awarded or was awarded to a small business. It only means it was specifically set aside for a small business. But lots of different ways to search. This is really useful for understanding historically where the government has spent its money, what agency I might want to target, which specific piece of an agency I might want to target, and potentially who are some of the big players in the market that maybe I want to approach about subcontracting type opportunities and forming teams for future requirements. So a lot that can be done with USA spending, and I'd really encourage you to play around with it a little bit and see what type of market intelligence you can get from it.
Phenomenal. Thank you, Jonathan. And I do want to point out a few other things on here. So the recipient names, these are all prime contractors that have been winning contracts in the prosthetics area or other major medical devices. This is useful information because you kind of want to do your own, competitor research. May not be exactly the right term, but maybe it will be. Maybe you are, able to compete with some of these companies, or maybe you're able to potentially partner with them. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Maybe you can, figure out who works at Assure Global LLC or SZY Holdings, see what's in their catalog, see what's on their website. Maybe you've got something very unique that they don't have. And it's a great strategy for going to market. And it's, I think, the focus of week 6 of our boot camp. So I'm not going to bury the lead. Happy to talk a little bit more about subcontracting, but this is, again, it's a lot of information, and it probably is going to take a few visits or over a long time to USA Spending to build these synapses, right? To start to see the connections and understand what you're looking at. But there's a very osmotic process here. Just the exercise of searching USA Spending and getting familiar with what these all look like, going to be really important to you. All right, so I'm going to share back over on my screen and continue here. We're going to have Jonathan back momentarily to talk about sort of expiring contracts, but actually I think we're going to have you back right now to talk expiring contracts. Now, real quick, can you just tee this up for us? If a contract expires, does that necessarily mean that it's definitely going to be recompeted, or do sometimes agencies just let contracts expire because they have what they need?
Right. So it could be one or the other. There's not necessarily a guarantee that a contract is going to be recompeted. It could be a one-off type requirement. But it's a very good starting point to understand, months out, so you can plan for it, what might be coming up. And figure out, where you want to put your business development activities. So absolutely not a guarantee, but a good indication that there might be something coming out that's not already posted.
So it's a really good thing to look at because it gives you sort of an idea of what might be coming down the pike. So show us how we can search for expiring contracts. Back over to your screen share.
So I'm going to start with USA Spending, but then flip over to another website. And I just want to point out, when you search for USA Spending, you see start date and end date. And end date really is that contract expiration date. Unfortunately, within USA Spending, there isn't really a way to search by end date. You just get all that information. So you could theoretically download a lot of rows of data and sort it and then start your analysis. But an easier way to do it is to go to another website. which is the same we use to look at opportunities. So it's sam.gov, and I'm just gonna quickly switch my screen share over to that. So, so this is sam.gov, and if you click this little 3-line icon here, you can go to the sam.gov databank. Now, you do have to sign up for an account. It is really simple, free, just need an email address. I've already got an account, so I'm just gonna click through there. It takes me back to this homepage, so back to the databank. But once you've logged in, you'll see this page. Under report type, what we want to do is build an ad hoc report. And admittedly, this site is not the most user-friendly thing in the world. It's a little bit tedious. So I will take you through the process, but it is, again, a little bit complicated to build this report. But it's really important information, so I want to show everyone how to do it. So if we click on award or IDV information report, that will take us to this page here where we can start creating reports. So I'll just click create, new report, and then go into the report builder. So the first thing we have to do is, say what the time period for contracts that we want to look for. Now we're looking for expiring contracts. Federal contracts are usually at most 5 years old. So when I do this type of search, I'll pick a contract start date that's 5 years ago. So I'm going to put in 1/27/2016, and then an end date for when the contract was signed of today. So that will mean I'm searching for every contract that was signed within the last 5 years.
Now that would typically be like your base year is signed in 2016, and then it might have 4 option years, and the last option year would be 2021. Is that effectively the thought process?
Yep, that's exactly right. And there are some very small number of contracts that are larger than that or longer than that, but in general, 5 years is about the maximum you're going to find for a federal contract. But that's absolutely right, Frank.
And this would still pick up like a 6-month one-off contract signed in the summer of 2019, for instance, correct?
Yep, absolutely. Anything that has a signed date within that 5-year period would show up. So we can skip over the last modified date. That doesn't really matter for our purposes. And then I'm going to choose the attributes that I want for this report. So I'm going to pick a couple here. So business size selection. I am going to do the contracting officer's business size determination. That'll tell me if it's a small business or large business requirement. And you can start to see that this is the tedious part, is just adding all of these fields in, but we'll try to do it pretty quickly. So contract dates, there is a field called completion date and estimated ultimate completion date. I'll talk about the difference between the two when we see the data, but just for now, it's important to add both of those in. Then we're going to go down.
Sorry, Jonathan, you keep hitting that up 1 level button. Is that just basically to go back to the?
Yep. Yeah, good point, Frank. That's just to go back to the categories of fields that I can add. But thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, sure.
So I go to the contract identification category. I'm going to add 2 fields here, which again I'll talk about in a moment. There's this PIID field and referenced IDV PIID field. Not the most well-named in the world, but I'll talk about in a moment what those 2 things mean. Go back up a level. And then department and agency information. I definitely want to know which department we're looking at. So I'll add the department name as well as the agency name. So the difference between the two is department would be Department of Defense, agency would be Defense Health Agency. So it's a little bit more detailed. I'll go back up one more time and scroll all the way down to product or service information. And this is where I can add my product or service code in here, as well as a field that is useful called description of requirement. That's that free text that we saw in USA Spending that just describes in a little bit more detail what is being purchased. And then one last category. I'm going to add under vendor information, I'm going to add the contractor name. So that's just telling me who owns the current contract, which can be useful for market intelligence purposes, or as Frank mentioned before, partnership purposes. So my report has all of these fields, which will all be useful. I'm going to go back up and show one more thing, but not add any fields, which is there's a category for socioeconomic data. If you wanted to restrict this to 8A requirements or any other socioeconomic info, that would be how to do it.
I can see that being useful. One really quick note for anybody out there who's just furiously scribbling notes. This is obviously going to be recorded and made available if you're not already watching the recording. So I definitely recommend, if you want to follow along, get your own betasam.gov screen up, watch what Jonathan's doing, and sort of mimic what he's doing at the same time.
Yeah. Thanks, Frank. So then it asks to choose metrics. The metric I would recommend is dollars obligated. So that is basically how much money the federal government has spent so far on that contract. And then the last thing here is qualifying on any attribute. This is a little bit of the particularly cumbersome part, but here's where we want to put in a couple of filters so we're not looking at every single contract that the government has ever issued. So let's take product or service information. I'll double click on that. And I got to go back to product or service code. And now it appears over here. So I've selected a filter. On form, the red part, I'm going to choose ID. That's the only option. So we just have to choose it. And then value. So I'm going to enter a value for my product or service code, in this case, 6515. So now we're only looking, or we will only be looking at expiring contracts within that product or service code. The next thing I want to do is choose an agency. So I close that one. And I'm going to go up to department and agency information, click the little arrow to expand that, and I'm going to search under contracting department name. And this would be the department that actually wrote the contract. Again, click on the little red thing for form, choose ID, and then value is where I can enter what value. In this case, I'm going to browse, so I know exactly how to enter it in. And I'm going to search for health and human services. And so you can see all the ones that match. I want health and human services. Double click it. It's now selected, and then click OK. So I have another filter now that I'm only looking at 6515 for health and human services. One more filter to do, and then we will be done with this report building, I promise. The last one we want to do is contract dates. So expand that, and I'm going to choose completion date. Double click it, and it appears over here. So this is the end date of the contract. Again, under form, we always pick ID. I don't know why they have it in there, because the only option is ID. And then this blue part that says equals, I'm actually going to click on that, which I didn't do in the other two. And instead of equals, I'm going to say between. And so now I have two values I can put in. So I'm going to say any contract over the next 6 months that expires in the next 6 months is what I want to see. So I'll click value. So the starting point for my search is anything that's expiring today, let's say. And then the end date for my search is anything that's expiring 6 months from now, which is July 27th. Okay, so our report is built. I know that was a little bit of a cumbersome process.
Yeah, but way less cumbersome now that we've seen you do it. That was a lot. I mean, I don't know how you're expected to figure that out on your own. So thank you for walking us through that.
Yeah, if I can just quickly run through the data. I know this will just take 2 seconds. Click save. I'll give this a name. I'll call it HHS 6515 and click OK. Run the report. And It takes us back here for whatever reason, and then we click Run Report again, and it'll show us data in a moment. And that is all the steps you need to go through. This will take 10 seconds to process, 15 seconds to process. And you will very soon have a list of every contract within 6515 at Health and Human Services that's expiring within the next 6 months. Just one very quick thing to note, which Frank mentioned not too long ago, which is around options. So just one thing I'll point out here is completion date and estimated ultimate completion date. The difference is the second field is the date when all of the options would expire. So for example, this row here, the current option period expires on the 31st, but it looks like there's probably 2 more one-year options on top of it. So this one might not be the best contract to go after, because if they're going to continue, they might just exercise those options. But you can see there's a bunch of other ones that don't seem to have any additional option periods. So I went through that really fast, but as Frank said, being recorded, so hopefully folks can follow on with the recording. It's a really useful tool, but somewhat complicated.
And definitely useful. You can just see right in this screen some small dollar opportunities that are going to be expiring, you know, whether it's lab products and protective wear down there, and I think the second up from the bottom. This is just really important information. You want to understand the deal flow. You want to understand where opportunities are coming, so you can position yourself, because if you do get that audience with the OSDBU, the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, or you're talking to someone in your local PTAC and they say, you know, what are you tracking, or how can we help you? You can say, well, you know, we know there's a few opportunities that are coming out in an HHS and the product service code 6515. It would be really great if those were set aside for small businesses, or it would be really neat if we could, you know, speak to them and give them a product demo maybe before they put that out. So a lot of different techniques to develop from there. You're just gonna have to kind of figure out which ones work for you. But just having the knowledge of expiring contracts when you go into these conversations will prove to whoever you're speaking with that you have done some of your homework and that you have the tools to succeed here. So Jonathan, thank you very much. I know people will be watching that demo a few different times. I know I will, but very helpful. All right, let's back over to the presentation, because we've got a few more panelists to come in and help us out. Now, we want to narrow down from what we did there, you know, from a broad prosthetics market to health and human services, and then we saw different agencies within there, like Indian Health Services. So how do we kind of refine our pipeline and figure out which agency customers match what we're selling? You know, it is important to understand who the people are and what they do. You have 3 basic profile types, right? In government contracting, there's a requirements owner. That typically is the person who owns the budget on the program side. They do not sign the contracts. That's the contracting officer, the acquisition professional, all the way over there on the right. So the requirements owners and the acquisition professionals work together, but distinct, right? So the requirements owner, they're the program, they're the ones that you want to talk to about requirements, about your capabilities, about why your product or service is unique, because you're ultimately trying to inform the requirement that they go out for. The acquisition professional, the contracting officers, they're the ones that write the solicitation. You want to talk to them about, you know, socioeconomic set-asides, the market, any types of terms and conditions that could prohibit you or, you know, potentially more competition. So you want to say, you know, you don't have to buy this particular brand name product. There are equivalent products that can save you money. That's just one example. In the middle are the influencers. These are typically your political appointees, your higher level agency officials. They are great people to connect with. They usually are responsible for the administrative, and I mean the presidential administration, their priorities. So We have just had a new administration come on. There's going to be a raft of new political appointees coming into government, all with their own programmatic responsibilities. Get to know them, but understand that they still will have to work through the contracting process with budget and requirements owners and acquisition professionals. So just understand when you're talking to each of these three different profiles, you're going to be wanting to have different conversations. We're going to talk more about that in a later week of the boot camp, but I did want to tee it up. Now, extra credit, learn their spending trends, try to figure out names of contracting officers, that you're seeing on some of these, for instance, expiring contracts. You never know when you might be in the same room. Make sure you're tailoring that Gov Shop profile and capability statement to parrot back some of the words you're seeing in the opportunities. And then reach out to the small business office. We have very emphatically suggested that you do this, that you get in touch with OSDBUs, you share those capability statements. Also contact your PTACs. These are nonprofit organizations that literally exist to help small businesses. So figure out where your local PTAC is, get in touch with them. And then you can also explore some of the procurement forecasts that get published by some of these agencies. Not always the easiest things to navigate, but let's talk about how you're going to do that, right? So what methods do expert government contracting professionals traditionally use to develop their business pipelines? What should you consider for your business? All right, I mentioned the agency recurring procurement forecast. I want to show this really quick. All agencies are required to share their outward procurement priorities. Just going to be frank here. These aren't always the most up-to-date things, but I think generally speaking, you can learn a little bit more about what industry should be thinking about when they're doing business with HHS. Here's their forecasting opportunities. We need to enter that NAICS code, so we're going to enter 6515, and we can see there's some things coming up. Again, I mentioned from the date-wise, they're not always the most up-to-date, but here's something in May that's coming out on water samples for glycosporia and other pathogens. I don't know what that is. Maybe you do, but you can see here some of the opportunities, and these are pretty big. There's a $20 million opportunity, a $25,000 opportunity just in this NAICS code alone. So again, why do I share this? When you do get that opportunity to talk to the OSDBU or to talk to your PTAC, you want to be able to say, yeah, I looked at the forecast. I know there's something coming out on nutrition focus groups, and I'd like to be positioned to do that. So spend some time looking at your target agencies and trying to get a sense for what they're going to be buying in the future out years, okay? Again, I mentioned this is all osmotic. You're not going to understand it right away. You're not going to immediately find an opportunity. But if you check in every week or two, or you keep sort of studying up and reading these things, you're just going to build that intelligence, that awareness of the market that you really need to be successful. You see anything really big, like high dollar, that's just way out of your price range, that's where teaming and subcontracting comes in. You want to find the primes that are the most dominant in the markets that you want to exist. You want to pursue them just like you'd pursue a government opportunity, because getting a subcontract with the prime is really valuable past experience. It gets you in the building. You can start to meet other government officials and develop your own relationships. Do not ignore subcontracting. We're going to emphasize that as we continue on the boot camp. Okay. So Lido and Raj have been super patient with me as we've kind of got up to this, because I'm sure you all are interested in how you're going to actually find opportunities. We know how to find expiring opportunities. You know how to look at the forecast. Where do we find the opportunities? Lido and Raj, I'm going to stop sharing and let you guys kind of tee it up now. Where do we find government contracting opportunities?
Thanks, Frank. Yeah, so while Raj pulls up his screen, I was just going to give a quick preview. What we're going to show you today is how to find contract opportunities through sam.gov. So the tool that Jonathan showed for looking at expiring contracts. But also wanted to mention that I'm glad that Frank showed at the beginning of this session how to search for opportunities through Gov Shop, because it's a lot easier through Gov Shop now. Gov Shop wasn't always available, so SAM.gov and the predecessor to SAM.gov really used to be the only show in town, and this is where a lot of the data that Gov Shop pulls is from. So I think it's good for us to show you sort of where that root data was, and also how to search through here as well. So SAM.gov does show you contract opportunities that are released across the federal government. One thing that it won't show you is task orders and other opportunities that come off of like GSA schedules and other multiple award vehicles that have already been put in place. On that prior screen that Frank showed, I think GSA eBuy was there. So you only have access to view those opportunities if you are a holder on those contracts. However, when a new multiple award contract is put out for bid, you will see it for the first time in SAM.gov. You just won't see it if you don't win a place on that contract. So one thing, and then I'll pass it over to Raj. You'll notice with this, a challenge is it's not super user friendly, and there's a lot of things that come up. As mentioned, Gov Shop does address some of those challenges and allows you to view the same information. But what we're going to show you today is how to really, filter through those opportunities on SAM.gov to get to the things that are most attractive to you to win some business. So I will pass it over to Raj.
All right, thank you, Lido. As Lido mentioned, beta.sam.gov and the ability to actually search for contract opportunities is a successor to a former tool that was used throughout the government, fbo.gov. Some folks may be familiar with that. FedBizOps, but now they've actually put fbo.gov as well as a bunch of other types of reporting and opportunity finding types of tools that previously existed into this new version of SAM.gov. So, things like FPDS, if folks were familiar with that, is now part of beta.sam.gov. So building off of the previous themes of looking at something within the medical arena, once you get into beta.gov, there's a couple of options here on the top. You can look at the award data, and we kind of looked through that, in just a couple of minutes ago. But you want to go down to contract opportunities. That's really the place where you'll actually be able to search for opportunities that have been laid out by the government. So let's start with something like medical and surgical supplies. So we continue down that theme. You want to press search on that. So you're automatically now searching, and you'll see here the keywords, medical and surgical supplies, in quotes here. So it's looking for that entire string within any of the opportunities. And just really, without doing any other filtering, you're looking at 21,561 results there. The nice thing here about SAM is that you can filter down. You can look at things around dates. So when was something published? For something that was pushed out in the past, when did it go inactive? For something that's already been published, has it been updated? When has it been updated? You can filter on that. And then you can also look at, and this is very important, so once something has been published, when is it actually due? Is it due in the next few weeks? Is it due in a certain time period? Is it do you have a few months before the responses are due? So you want to be able to filter there. And then just moving down on the left-hand side, you can specify which federal organization you want to pinpoint. So again, if you're looking at in the medical field, if you want to look at something within HHS, Health and Human Services, or one of the Defense Health organizations or VA, you can specify that here on the left-hand side. The type of notice, so there's a couple of things that you can actually filter on. Special notices, The government likes sending out requests for information or sources sought, and so you can filter down and look really just for those. There's pre-solicitation notices, so the government in advance may send a note out saying, hey, we're about to send something out for a specific type of requirement. Just moving a little bit further down here, for upcoming opportunities where you have an opportunity to actually bid on something, the two areas that you really want to focus on are solicitation and then combined synopsis / solicitation here. And then just moving further down, any type of award notices will also be posted on sam.gov as well. Any type of justifications, sole source justification, brand name justification, those types of documentation or postings will be here as well. And then you can further filter down into specific NAICS, specific DUN numbers, PSC, product or service codes, specific type of set aside. So if you want to do just a total small business set aside, or an 8A set aside, or hub zone, or service disabled veteran owned set asides, women owned business set asides, that's really where you can actually filter down further there. And then also the place of performance. So if you're really kind of pinpointing opportunities, in a specific location, you can put in a zip code there as well. So why don't we filter down a little bit on medical and surgical supplies. Let's look for something that may have been, published in the last 3 months. We know we're looking for some active opportunities to go after. Something that may have been, updated in the last month here. And then, something where we know, we have enough time, something that came out recently, but something where we can actually respond. So let's use today's date to start with. And let's say we want something that is due, within the next month or so. So let's add that filter. Let's add that filter, and let's add that filter there. So now we've gone down from 21,000 to about 1,500 results here, and it's sorted by relevance here. Other options are by title or that last updated date that we had filtered on previously. So this first one looks kind of interesting. It's medical and surgical supplies, exactly what we search for. It's within Health and Human Services, so HHS. It's within IHS. Gives us a specific office, program office within IHS. It gives you information about, okay, so offers are due February 5th. It was updated on the 25th of January, so just a couple of days ago. It's an actual combined synopsis and solicitation. So it's something that we can actually look at, something we can actually bid on, and we have now just a handful of days to potentially propose on something. So let's click on this one. This one looks interesting here. So when you click on this, it gives you a little bit more information. So that was kind of the summary that we saw when we actually did the search. Now, when you click on it, you get a little bit more information about this opportunity. So some of the general information, again, some of the stuff that we saw in that more summary view on the previous page, the due date, the inactive date, etc. It gives you information about the classification. So which product code, which NAICS code is it associated with? Where's that place of performance? So in this case, it's in New Mexico here. Then it gives you a lot of the background or the description. And it really depends on the specific opportunity that you actually click on. Some are more detailed than others. But you'll see some general description information, some background information about the opportunity here. The scope of work, what they're specifically looking at here, some of the requirements that may be associated with that scope of work here. So this is, there's a specific hospital, the Santa Fe Indian Hospital, that's looking for medical and surgical supplies here. And it says, they're looking for these supplies on an annual basis. There will be times where an emergency may arise on an as-needed basis. And then, the exact types of items are not known in advance, so in this case, but they do have some technical requirements around, things like shipping or delivery here as well. And then they specify those in a little bit more detail here. So again, it gives you a lot of the background information, some information about the requirements and the scope here. And I know we're running close to time here, so I'm just going to scroll down here.
Yeah, that's all right, by the way. We don't have to worry. We're not sort of time bound here. One thing I did just want to mention before you jump off the technical requirements is, this is something we'll talk about more in the boot camp, but I'd love to hear your perspective. But I started the webinar today really by showing how many opportunities are out there. Just the landscape is vast. A lot of times, frankly, when you're looking at these opportunities, you should be looking for reasons to not be interested in them, right? So like, what technical requirements do you not qualify for? The sooner you find a reason to throw out an opportunity, the more opportunity you'll have to find ones that are a better fit. Is that one of the techniques you might use when you're surveying opportunities?
Absolutely, yeah. You want to look at things that you want to really kind of quickly scan through things like the scope of work, the technical requirements to see, am I eligible? Is this something I can do or not, or something I can provide or not? And then I think you could quickly be able to tell whether this is an opportunity worth pursuing further or not.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, Frank, too, I think you made a great comment up front about having some of the unique advantages. So if you have an advantage such as a socioeconomic status or some type of strong differentiator from a service offering, you should really zero in on identifying those things that fit within those bounds too, because those are the ones you really need to focus your energy on, because it can be overwhelming. There's so many opportunities out there that you need to quickly narrow down in order to truly be successful.
Absolutely. Yeah, let them get away. There will always be others.
And just one last thing here. As you scroll all the way down here, there's always a section for attachments and links. So this is really where you'll see things like terms and conditions. You'll see, RFP, RFQ, SOW, PWS types of documents. All of the relevant solicitation documents will be in this section called attachments and links here. And then provide you with the contact information. So where's the contracting office located? Who are some of the POCs associated here, and a little bit about the history here. But that's
worth looking at, by the way. If you see a lot of amendments, if you see a lot of, pre-solicitation activity, that kind of gives you a sense for, how long this opportunity has been out. Is that relevant?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It'll tell you kind of how long it's been, what types of modifications when modifications took place, what modifications to look out for, so that you can actually look at some of the documentation, some of the attachments there to kind of track the history and what has changed over time, if anything.
Great.
So that is searching for opportunities within sam.gov in a nutshell here. So they do provide, again, the opportunity to search for things, filter on opportunities, and helps you, get closer to pinpointing opportunities that may be of relevance for your organization there.
Awesome. And thank you for showing us through it. betasam.gov is the government's official system of record. So, we do curate all of the sam.gov opportunities into the Gov Shop opportunity database, along with state and local opportunities. So at least when you're searching in Gov Shop opportunities, you're going to find anything that's on sam.gov, hopefully a lot quicker. But when you do go in to look at that opportunity, it'll ultimately take you to the beta.sam.gov homepage or the state and local bidding system homepage. The advantage of Gov Shop is the search is just maybe a little bit more intuitive, But also, if you subscribe, you get automatically matched with opportunities that correspond to your business. Now, it is all well and good to go out and search for opportunities and find them and put in some bids. I definitely recommend that. It's good exercise. Make sure you know what you're doing, obviously, because there's legal ramifications about bidding. We're going to talk about that later. But it's not all about just finding opportunities. Relationships are super important. And now I get to turn it over to our friend Brian Lennon. Brian, can you introduce yourself real quick and then kind of let us know what you're going to be talking about over the next couple slides as we start to land this plane?
Yes, good morning. This is Brian Lennon, support corporate development at Sensio Consulting Group. I've been in federal business development for 12 years and 25 years in general sales, sales management. This morning, just going to talk about participation in industry days, RFIs, and building out your professional network. Everything that we've talked about this morning are really the inputs into how to start capturing an opportunity. It's one thing to know about opportunities. It's another thing to put an action plan in place and execute against that plan. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, starting with if there is an opportunity to attend an industry day. So I look at industry days, to me, they're usually larger opportunities, often require teaming. Sometimes, most of the time, I'm not able to prime necessarily, so I'm looking to network and build out a team. So I attend industry days, especially in COVID times. Virtually is great because it's not a huge time investment. You just dial into a Zoom for an hour or two. But in regular times, I attend industry days mainly to establish my presence and credibility around the opportunity. I walk in the room, I make sure I go shake the hand of the client, I say hi to a few people, I ask a question and introduce myself and my name of my company. I get my name on the attendees list, which is then published on beta.sam. And next thing you know, like, people know I was there. And the reason for that is because when I approach someone about teaming, I generally judge, the first kind of barrier is, is this person credible, and did they even, care enough to attend the industry day? And I think that establishes your credibility. So in terms of, posturing on why someone should add you to the team or what you bring to a deal, I think just being there and being credible is a main takeaway. Now, it does take time to attend industry days, so I would make sure that it's a key focus account or an opportunity that I have core capabilities in. I wouldn't just attend industry days for the sake of networking, but if it is an opportunity that's of interest, I definitely would invest that time, and I do. I probably attend one industry day a month, around some key accounts or opportunities. And
I was just going to ask, Brian, are they related to like one opportunity or like a portfolio of opportunities?
It's really a portfolio. I set up my search criteria where I get notified literally by industry days. So I see all the industry days the government puts on, every day, and it's usually between 5 and 10. 98% of the time they're not relevant to me, and I just delete the email. But it is good to keep an eye out, especially at target accounts or core capability areas.
Mm-hmm. I mean, from a relationship perspective, I mean, in normal times when they're done in person, I've been to a few, and it's energizing to meet people. It's energizing to have those conversations, and the credibility thing you mentioned is spot on. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on those. And where do you get, by the way, where do you get your industry day announcements? Is it betasam.gov, or is there another like a listserv?
Beta.sam.gov. They are required to post most of that stuff on beta.sam.gov.
Okay.
Now, in terms of RFIs and sources sought, it's a double-edged sword here. It's writing a mini proposal, so you need to qualify that opportunity, and determine whether it's worth the time in responding. So, GSA has done a good job of streamlining the process. They've gone to this web form where you just click on the web form and maybe you upload, a 3 to 5 page, capability statement or something like that, which is generally boilerplate content. So it's not that time intensive, and you can participate in RFIs. I've actually had some pretty good successes with RFIs over the last year, and I'm pretty bullish on responding to RFIs. Again, when it's a core account or a core capability. At Sensio, we responded to an RFI and called the client directly right afterwards and set up a meeting while they're in the market research phase, and we won a $20 million BPA based on that. And another situation where we responded to an RFI and we called the client and they wouldn't meet with us, and we got down selected, an invite only situation, and we won a $7 million contract. So participating in these RFIs is important. I mean, if it's kind of like you have to show up to be credible, and if you don't show up, then you're not even in the game. But again, you have to determine, you have to read the tea leaves of the RFI. Are they just checking the box to, take an opportunity maybe to a full and open contract? Is it really, complicated or large or geographically dispersed or whatever, and it's just going to go to a large company? You can kind of read between the lines whether they're just checking the small business box and really want to take it full and open, or this is legitimately open for sources. And so I respond probably to about 15 RFIs per year.
Now, is there a way to know, because I want to underline that point you just made, sometimes for sure it's just about figuring out if there are a certain number of socioeconomic concerns in a market to set aside or not set aside. How do you know when one's really more strategic, that you do want to pursue? Are there things to look for?
Yeah, there's probably more what I would call red flags. If they ask for 20 pages, 25 pages, if they ask for, you have to have experience in this client with these systems, these clearance levels that maybe you don't have. I mean, the more stringent they are around the requirements and the larger the response, it's usually a red flag that honestly they're probably just checking the small business box and it's going to come out as a full and open contract. And maybe that's not the best opportunity. When it's 3 to 5 pages and it seems like the work is well suited for a small business, those are the ones. And honestly, generally speaking, that's probably 80% of the time that's the case. You just don't want to waste your time on the ones that you're pretty sure are going full and open. So, I mean, what are you hoping to accomplish? You're hoping to steer the opportunity to a small business set aside to a certain contract vehicle. You want to be on the invite list if they do a down select. But also, again, back to establish your credibility. If I call somebody and we're talking about an opportunity and I say, did you respond to the RFI? And they say no, that's a sign to me that they don't feel like that's a great opportunity for them, or they weren't willing to invest the time or effort to respond to that. And there's different reasons for that, but that's definitely maybe they're not that credible relative to that opportunity.
Excellent.
So next slide, Frank.
Real quick, I do want to mention you can find pre-solicitation opportunities, RFIs, and the like on Gov Shop opportunity page. So again, it will take you to this betasam.gov listing ultimately, but definitely don't forget to use that filter on the Gov Shop opportunities page right here on the left. Okay, thanks.
So real quick, the first thing my vice president told me when I got in this business is that I have to establish my personal network. And I, kind of asked him, why. And basically what it comes down to is, you get your best market research, your intelligence from your friends and family, people in the business. And when an opportunity comes out from a certain department or agency or office, you know, I typically, in some accounts, know who to call to ask questions. Hey, I noticed this. You know, what do you think? Why, you know, why is this happening, or what's going on? And the reality of it is that it saves you a lot of time. You know, so I specifically built a network around specific accounts. So I'll use the example of the Department of Homeland Security. You know, I go into, you know, some of the federal websites that we saw earlier. I run a report on who's doing work in, you know, say, you know, DHS in the 541-611 NACE code over the last 3 years. And I sort that by company, and I can see that these 5 or 6 large companies have, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars of prime contracts. These small companies have all routinely won work over and over again, you know, at different components of DHS. And I kind of know who's there. So, you know, I know that if I want to know something about Customs and Border Protection, to call these 3 companies. So then, now that I have a sense of, you know, who the target partners are, I generally, you know, over time, build relationships with their BD people. And that's for a variety of reasons. Sometimes they have BPAs within those agencies that I'm not going to have access to those opportunities. Other times I'm trying to qualify something and whether I should invest my time in it or not. And, you know, they can quickly tell me, you know, yes or no, or what they know about it. When I reach out to them originally, I very rarely send emails. I just don't think emails work that well. I think people get, like, you know, marketed to all the time, and they just kind of delete emails. I come up with a story or a message, and I call that person and I say, you know, I know that you're working here. The reason I'm calling is about this specific opportunity. This is what I know about it, or, you know, my value proposition relative to that deal. Let's spend 30 minutes and kind of get to know each other and compare notes. And having that sort of discussion is really meaningful. And over time, what ends up happening is, you know, you have, you know, 4 or 5 of those calls per month. Next thing you know, your phone's ringing back, you know, a year later, and a deal comes out and people are thinking of you in that particular account or particular market. So especially when you're looking to expand into federal, you know, sell into the white space, expand your capabilities, you know, often you're subcontracting. And if you don't know who the credible primes are and have a relationship with them in advance, and have, you know, credibility, like, it's all about, we talked about earlier, about doing your homework. I get calls from people all the time who ask, you know, me if I want to help them with a O&M contract. And, you know, Sensio doesn't perform O&M services. So it's like, if you would have done your homework, you probably wouldn't have asked me that question. Obviously, you're just, you know, kind of scanning the marketplace broadly. And I just generally, you know, respond politely, but just say, you know, it's not a good fit for us, you know, thanks, but no thanks, kind of thing. So I build, you know, some tools that you could use. I use LinkedIn a lot. Every time someone attends an industry day, those attendees lists are published. So if you want to know who's at, you know, DLA performing supplier management services, you know, go to the attendees list, and there's 40 companies. The incumbents on there, and all the large and small companies are on there, and generally the contact information's on there. So if you want to know who's, you know, circling that opportunity, just look at the attendees list for the industry days.
I mean, that's huge. I mean, I hope people already do that, but if not, you know, you got to have that Rolodex. You need to know who's doing what in your market, and those industry day attendee lists, boy, valuable information.
Yeah, and the final comment is, I think everyone should spend, you know, a couple hours a month on proactive establishment of your network. It's a little bit harder in COVID times when you can't go to in-person events necessarily, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to, it does save you a lot of time, and it helps inform your strategy and how you spend your bid decisions. I heard one person say that writing a proposal costs like $1,500 a page. And when you think about it, it's, you know, you could spend hours and hours writing proposals. Sometimes you hire consultants and proposal people, graphics, all this other stuff, you know, and if you're just writing a proposal and you have really no chance of winning, you know, that's just money you're throwing out the window. So, you know, I value my time. I think everyone in this business does. And and making good decisions. You get your best information from your friends and family network, and definitely invest in building out that network. It does pay dividends and saves you a lot of time downstream. So back to you, Frank.
Excellent. Brian, thank you so much for the wisdom there. The points that you make, it's the soft stuff. It's what you kind of have to do, and it's not going to happen overnight, but you've got to develop the relationships. You've got to, industry and government. So be patient. Sometimes that first relationship is the hardest to develop, but then it, can lead to others. You're just building that network. So keep at it. What we want to talk about next week in the boot camp is what you're going to do sort of when you start looking for opportunities. I know we're a little overhead on time now, so I'll probably just be brief here and say, look out for the email next week on Monday. It's really going to cover much more about how to read and review opportunities quickly so you can find the ones that are most relevant to you. Now, one thing we can do to save you some time with Gov Shop is match you with opportunities that you're looking for. Like, it can take a couple of hours a week to review the open opportunities on Gov Shop, on betasam.gov, and on the plethora of other state and local bidding systems. It can take you a lot of time. So we offer an accelerator subscription on Gov Shop. And you can save 10% on the annual subscription today. It's like $119 a month normally. If you subscribe for the annual, you'll get over 1 month free, but also loads of other useful support, which you need. You need this as a small business. We'll help you make your Gov Shop profile amazing. We will offer you and work with you to sharpen up your capability statement. We've got a graphic designer who is standing by to help new subscribers with that awesome looking glossy capability statement. We will provide you with links to every state opportunity platform. That's something that you would spend hours searching the internet for. We'll give you a spreadsheet with links and specific links to go to register your business at that state platform. So that alone is a value there that's hard to even put a price tag on. I mentioned automatic matching with opportunities. We will proactively do this for your business, not just the ones that are coming through on betasam.gov, but we'll go out and look at other agency platforms, other state and local platforms, pull those opportunities in and email them to you. You will get alerts about that. So I would recommend considering this if you've got the capital for it, because like Brian said a minute ago, your time is valuable. Your time is money. All of these things you're going to have to be doing that we've talked about today. Consider the opportunity cost of searching agency opportunity databases versus the time you could spend meeting people, going to Rfis and the like. So head over to govshop.com/blog/subscriptions, select that accelerator package, use the promo code bootcamp10, take 10% off, and really unlock what we can do for you at Gov Shop. Well, thank you all for your time. Thank you, Brian, Lido, Raj, and Jonathan. I really appreciate the wisdom that y'all shared. We went over time, but I think it was all really extremely valuable stuff. And thank it all in the boot camp. We will be sending this video out as a recording, and I know that you'll bookmark it and use it as a resource because it was just full of useful information. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll let you get back to your day. And look forward to the next time we can be together. Thanks. Bye-bye.